So you have just started to watch some good nerd movies, but you are confused as for which are considered good and which are considered bad. Well, fear not, for I, the Bowtie, am here to help you. This is A Nerd's Guide to Good Movies. Part 2. Copyrighted. In our modern society, there are many movies who have been universally agreed upon to be bad and universally agreed upon to be good. And if you're ever having a conversation with someone and they are referring to one of these movies being really good or really bad, for example, he was almost as stupid as Jar Jar. And if you don't know who Jar Jar Binks is, you're not going to understand that joke. That is why I am here today, to help you understand which movies are considered good and which are considered bad. Typically in these types of videos, people say, this is just my opinion and I demand respect for my opinion. But this is not my opinion. Yeah, take that. Yeah, no, this isn't my opinion. This is just my understanding of the community's opinion, the general meaning in the community about certain nerd movies. If that makes any sense at all. If you want to, you can always check out part 1 of this video. I can't promise you that the movie you want reviewed is going to be in this video, but if it isn't here, it's probably over in the other one. So without further ado, let's just get started. Pirates of the Caribbean. Everyone loved the first one, primarily because of good storytelling and the personality of Jack Sparrow was just awesome. However, things started to go downhill in the next movies. They made Jack Sparrow the main character, or a main character, instead of as a sidekick. And he wasn't really meant as a main character, he was meant as a sidekick. So things didn't really work out there. The 5th movie was also terrible, just because of cheesy scenes and just like really unnecessary and cheesy. The first one gets a 6, the next 2 gets a 4, and the last 2 gets a 3. The classic Superman movies from 1970 to 1980 are not that complicated. The first 2 were really good and have become modern classics, the next 2 got repetitive and cheesy. The first 2 gets a 6 and the last 2 gets a 4. The classic Batman movies are very similar to what happened to the classic Superman movies. The 2 first ones were, they weren't exactly groundbreaking or brilliant. People give them a 4 or a 5 out of 6, but the 2 next ones were just horrible, because bat nipples, for some reason. The last 2 movies ruined the dark and twisted quadrilogy that Tim Burton was leading up to. They were too fake, too plastic looking, too childish. I've actually heard people saying that the last 2 movies were only meant as advertisements to children. So, I mean, that explains a lot. If there's anything good about them, it's the acting of George Clooney and Jim Carrey, and even that's debated. The last movie gets a 2 out of 6 on the dice. Jurassic Park. What is probably the most impressive about Jurassic Park series is the CGI. To this day, 20 years after the first movie was released, it still looks pretty realistic. Both the effects and the writing started to barrel in the next couple of movies. Perhaps the most hated one is number 3. You'll find a lot of hatred of that one on the internet. The first Jurassic Park movie gets a 6 out of 6. The next Jurassic Park movie, number 2, gets a 4 or a 5, and the last one, sadly, gets a 2 or a 3. Jurassic World. The 2 movies that have been out so far have been kind of bad. People dislike them because they have a lack of depth and they feel too cartoony. Not like the Batman movies, the last two Batman movies, but this is a different type of cartoony, if you know what I mean. However, they can be fun if you just turn off your brain and want to watch some brain-dead action. It can be a good time if you do that. They both get a 3 or 4 on the dice, somewhere in between. Back to the Future is, luckily, a trilogy that is, for the most part, brilliant. It is loved by people because it's thought-provoking with its time paradoxes. I hypothesize that philosophizing about time paradoxes today wouldn't be as popular as it is thanks to the Back to the Future. I'm not sure about that, it's an assumption I make, so don't quote me on it. I mean, we have Doctor Who and other time travel movies, but Back to the Future probably helped a lot. Back to the Future 1 is considered the best out of the franchise, but don't be surprised or offended if you ever meet someone who likes the second or the third installment the best. All movies get a 4 or a 6 on the dice. Ready Player One appeals to both a younger and just a tiny bit older audience at the same time. It does this by giving Easter eggs to the millennials, like Pac-Man and Tetris, but at the same time, if you don't recognize any of those Easter eggs, it is entertaining for people like myself, people at my age. Ready Player One gets a 5 out of 6 on the dice. The Matrix movies were good for the same reason the Back to the Future movies were good. They make people think. The only difference is that the Matrix movies are slightly more serious, way darker, and way more philosophical. The third one was horrible though, nobody liked it. It valued visual effects over story, which, if you're a screenwriter, or a movie director, don't do that. The first one gets a 6 on the dice, the next one gets a 5 on the dice, and the last one gets a 3 on the dice. Ghostbusters is difficult to define. The first one was brilliant and groundbreaking, the next one was people split on, and the last one, the most recent one, people were like, okay, I guess. The first Ghostbusters was brilliant just because of good storytelling and well done acting. It didn't really have one specific thing it did right, it was just good, it was just good. The most recent movie was one of those turn off your brain and just try and have fun movies. Yeah, it was sort of cliche and cheesy, which often seems to stick together. You can sort of enjoy it if you try really hard, or just relax and just watch, but apart from that it was sort of bad. It gets a 3 out of 6. The second installment of Ghostbusters is debated. Even though it did terrible amongst critics, people calling it unfunny and scary, I've seen a lot of fans who say that they actually liked the movie and they have tried to sort of go in defense for their movie. So if you ever talk to anybody about this movie, they are either going to say that it was terrible, or they are going to say that they loved it and that you shouldn't say it's terrible. Those are the two types of people you're going to meet. Within the world of Ghostbusters, of course. The Lego movies were for the most part great. The Lego movie with capital T was brilliant. It had clever jokes and it had an emotional ending. The Lego Batman movie, while it had clever jokes, it could have had more of an emotional ending. And the Lego Ninjago movie, it could have had cleverer jokes, and it could have had more of an emotional ending. The two first ones, the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie, gets a 5 or a 6. But the Ninjago movie gets a 4 out of 6. Pixar. Where do I begin with Pixar? Pixar's movies are, for the most part, brilliant and admirable. They're known as the company that makes grown men cry like a little baby. How good do you think their movies are? The best ones are probably the Toy Story franchise, I'd say, and perhaps Finding Nemo. The worst ones, the Cars franchise. Definitely the Cars franchise. Cars 2. Oh, Cars 2. Cars 2 was more of a spy movie than it actually was a movie about living cars. They focus too much on the spy thing. I was going to do a segment on this video dedicated to Walt Disney, but you see, I sort of already have. Over the last couple of years, Disney have been buying other companies and claiming them as their own. I mean, that's what happens when you buy another company. They bought Marvel, they bought Star Wars, they bought Fox. I'm sure there are many more, and they are sort of trying to expand their imperium to cover almost all of the television in America. And people sort of make this a joke. Sure, Disney do make movies for themselves, and when they do, they're pretty amazing. The best one is probably The Lion King, by far. And the worst one of the Disney movie sequels. Prequel to a Disney movie. Now, in the last video, I said that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was perhaps slightly worse than it actually is. Yeah, I might have gone a little bit subjective there, and a little bit personal. I personally hate the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but if you turn off your brain, just watch it with an open mind, it can be okay. Ultimately, you guys should make up your own minds about these movies. I'm not telling you what to think, I'm telling you what other people think, so that in case you think differently, you know that. But do you think differently? Well, maybe you should go and find out. And the element of the month is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the lightest element in the universe, because it only has one electron, one proton and one neutron. Because hydrogen is so light and only misses a single electron in its shell, it can easily bond with other elements. A thing I have noticed over the last couple of weeks is that people suggest the element of the month to be elements I have already done, and I can't really blame you for not having watched every single one of my videos. So from now on, if you're going to suggest an element, don't choose one in this table that have a cross over it. That element has already been chosen. Just letting you guys know, I went with doing this type of video again. The first time was fun and experimental. The second time, it was just laborious and boring. I didn't like it, so I won't be doing it again. Sorry if you looked forward to another one, but no. Yeah. No. Goodbye.